Okay, so when Pokemon first came out, we've always had speculation that every idea came from somewhere, and maybe some ideas were just changed over time, but we never really got to see what those were. That's why we talk about prototype data. So one of them was I've always had this idea that Lugia was an idea even sooner, like right around Gen 1, and there's kind of reason to believe this. Now, here's where it gets even stranger. If you actually think about Pokemon Gold and Silver, there's reason to believe that Lugia wasn't in the original 1997 Space World demo. However, it's kind of debatable that maybe at one point it was supposed to be, or maybe it just at that time it wasn't in the game, because there's reason to believe that, they reference it much later on. What happened though was at the same time though, when Game Freak was designing the very first version of Gold and Silver, this was before they decided to compress the game, and Satoru Iwata came along, wrote him a compression algorithm, and then they just redid the game. Well, we found out later on that the concept of Lugia even goes back to 1997, even before the movie's released and before they started working on it. And even then, the movie itself was they took a base model of an existing prototype Pokemon, and then they decided to reuse it for the movie, but nobody else knew this outside of the creators and even Game Freak themselves. Kind of like Mew, from Gen 1. The game designers were in on it, but maybe nobody else was, So this is one reason why Pokemon also became popular. They kind of did the same thing, but in this case, a little different, though. So, and this is what's even more ridiculous if you really think about it. Some people have actually said that this prototype Lugia sprite was actually, if you look at the way the hairs stand up on it, it's actually proof that it's got to be Lugia, because it looks a little opposite to Ho-Oh, and Lugia was supposed to be a female. So, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, some female birds have this kind of hairstyle, and so it really makes you think, maybe Lugia really is a female, even though it's genderless. Because, I mean, again, you could, if anybody remembers, even in the movie, not the movie, you can remember, like, even in the anime, there was that baby Lugia and the Lugia and its mother. So, while it's definitely possible it could be a male and a female, there's more than one Lugia, basically. Their legendaries are capable of breeding. Maybe not in the games, but... And I think the reason why Game Freak does that is because, to balance it out, so you only get one legendary unless you don't trade it from another Pokemon. So that kind of makes sense. So you don't have, like, 6 Lugias by the end of the game, Which some people would probably be on board with that idea, but that's just kind of like how that works, though. So basically, and this is going to be the pictures that we see, and this will be even further evidence that, yes, this has to mean that Lugia had to be an idea even sooner than 1997 or even 1998, if I believe that's when they first found it. But it's been there from the beginning, though, is basically the argument I'm trying to make. I do think, but I still think, I'm still trying to figure out, and not index numbers based on, like, they are in the National Dexter order, but in the game's order, like the prototype order. Like where Rhydon was the very first Pokemon, and then all of a sudden, it went all the way up to like 191, then it just stopped, So Mew should have been up there, but then it's like, you have all these Pokemon that were created, but they just weren't added till many years later. And so it kind of makes you wonder, if that's how it worked, then what about all the other Pokemon that we don't see, all the other designs and all that? What else does Game Freak know that we don't? What other prototype Pokemon designs have we not seen that have been mislabeled? Like for example, like, going back to Gen 2, when this whole thing began, we found we found more sprites, but the index number started at 300, and those were like, you could take like this fairy type Pokemon that was actually Beta Celebi, and you could actually argue when Gen 2 was being designed, that was basically the very first Pokemon that they had put in the game, and it wasn't even in the 1997 Space World demo. So, but here's where it gets crazier, though. But what about, index numbers 120 or 192 all the way up to 299, if that is the case, it's like you get confused on this stuff, because there might be prototype designs out that we haven't found yet, but at the same time, though, those could have been designs even prior to Gen 2 that were right around Gen 1, but those would have been the first Pokemon they decided to have that split cutoff for Gen 1, because they thought 191 was good, or 190, but Mew ended up replacing Omega. Omega replaced Blastoise, and or Blastoise replaced Omega, and they moved some Pokemon around for cartridge limitations in a poll, but we never knew some of this stuff, and we never even knew what else they had at the time. So it's a lot of people have commented to me saying that it just makes sense that they reused all this stuff. It makes sense because I'll give you another example, and this just goes to show you that this is how people in Japan believe what they do, especially if they write something. Writing scripts for a video game isn't easy. You want a good example, look at Capcom, and they're always remaking games. People that worked at Capcom, never failed to amaze me in some cases because, if you remember, Resident Evil 4, for example, they had 3 scripts to that game before they decided on the one that they wanted. And the 3 scripts before it, there were 3 games that they made. They made Devil May Cry. They made, as in the Devil May Cry series by Capcom. You had, and that has 5-6 games, and I'm trying to think. You had Haunting Ground, which was, or Hunting Ground, Haunting or Hunting Ground. It's for the PS2. It's Clock Tower series. You also had, and I'm trying to think what the other one was. I always forget what the other one was. But it was another game that was made by Capcom. It was another, but it was all based on Resident Evil 4, and it's and I'm just sitting there thinking wow, I never would have known that. Based on a series, they took the concept, didn't use that idea, but then they added it, and they just had enough into it already. So it's hey, that's pretty cool. Kind of like how in Code Veronica, for example, and some people don't know this. Some of the stuff was reused in Fatal Frame because it was made by the same people. Even though Fatal Frame is owned by Tecmo and now owned by, I think Nintendo owns Fatal Frame now, even though Koei Tecmo owns it. It's interesting, actually. You kind of have to dig around a little bit. But, yeah, Fatal Frame was actually made by the same people that worked at Capcom. Freelancers. It's actually very interesting. The names that pop up in staff credits. But even as far as Pokemon goes, I've seen a lot of similar names that people would overlook, and they pop up in other games. I remember some of them, like Hiroshi Yamauchi, for example, when he was the president of Nintendo of Japan, and he was actually doing his name popped up in some games I wasn't even expecting, some visual novels I always liked. And it was actually very interesting, to think that there's certain games out there you would never guess that some of these people have worked on, and it's wow, really? Are we talking about the same person? And sure enough, it was, because I looked it up and there wasn't anybody else that name came up as. I was wow, that's interesting. Never knew that. So, you really learn something new every day, as they say. You really can't judge everything the same. Everything is different. And there's always that chance something unique can happen on a level you've never even seen before. So you always got to keep that in mind. What are you going to find next, and what is it going to mean for the history of the preservation and all that, if that makes sense? Yeah, it should make sense. But anyways, so here's some more Pokemon prototype data. Hopefully we got, we'll be doing more. I've learned recently that, and this was kind of going back a while ago, but I've been busy. I found out a while ago Dr. Lava's not really making the content like he still makes the theory videos. He just got a better offer, who pays him doing what he's doing. And so if he's not, I'll be honest, if I find prototype data, I will most certainly talk about it. So if anybody wants to know, if I'm still doing this whole thing, yeah, I'm still around. I just, kind of been busy with other things. I'll also mention right now, if you want to start supporting this channel, we I'll make I'm trying to think of something even better than Patreon, but I've been thinking about taking this channel a lot more seriously, pushing out more variety rather than just the games that I've been doing. Because this channel, for the most part, was just whatever I felt like uploading. But I'm starting to get to the point where it's I feel like I can do a lot better, and I have ideas that I want to do with it. But at the same time, though, I feel not the situation that I'm in, but it's just, motivation comes with a long cost too, if that makes sense. So, money's a good motivator for said product. So like, you know, I'll keep putting out content regardless. But I came to find out a while ago, and I don't know if people know this, you know, YouTube actually has an upload limit. Even if you don't upload that many videos, for some stupid reason, they've decided that you can, I think you can only upload like anywhere between like 100 videos a day. And even if you delete them, it still counts. There's like this little invisible timer that they cling it onto your channel. And even partners had that same problem, you know? YouTube is such a, it's such a weird site. Like they've had great ideas, but it's been sabotaged for like monetization causes and all that. You know, like Google's done the same thing. I believe they did it for nefarious reasons, and I'm not trying to get into politics, but you know, there's a reason why Google used to have an old saying, you know, don't be evil, and now you don't even find that on them anymore. I wonder why. So Google obviously bought YouTube, and YouTube's kind of been scourged by them for years. I knew it when they first bought it way back in 2008, but I don't know. It's you can't always believe what you're told, and there's definitely reasons behind it by somebody else's actions. But we'll kind of save that for another time, though. I don't think this is the video people want to really hear this in. But Pokemon prototype data, yeah, we'll definitely be talking more about it, and I will definitely be working with people on something like this, because I feel like more of the stuff has to come to light somehow. Like, there's times people have to know the truth about like this series. There's so much stuff that most people don't know about, and there's still a lot of answers out there that nobody, it's like right there in the public domain right now. Like, you can find this stuff, you just have to assume it's there and look for it, you know, and then be able to make sense of what it is. So if we can do that, then I definitely think that this channel can offer something in return other than just video game footage and, you know, games that people probably already played, right? So that'll be what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to upload stuff people haven't seen before, and maybe some repeats here and there, but, you know, just variety, though, you know, so that'll be interesting in itself. So again, if you're not already subscribed, please already subscribe. We almost rolled a 1 million total views on this channel, so I'd say give it another month. I think it's like under 23,000 to go, but it's like up to 77,000. So we're there, but we're still like a long way away from hitting 1 million subs. So that will definitely be another goal in the future. But right now we're just gonna kind of do this for fun, but at the same time though, try to think of it like a business where we can, you know, try to get more people to know this stuff exists. Because hey, that's always exciting if somebody can beat the odds like that. So anyways, yeah, so Pokemon's got a lot of prototype data, and there's also a lot of things out there people don't know about it, even if we're still circling around trying to find it, whatever it is. But it is interesting to think like what we don't know necessarily. So at one point it's an idea, and then it just becomes a memory later on.